this Saturday night, the verdict is in. The Dutchman accused of extorting and harassing BC teen Amanda Todd learns his fate.
This is precedent setting, not only in Canada, but across the world.
Stepping down, the chair of Hockey Canada resigns over his organization's handling of sexual assault allegations. Plus, abortion ban backlash.
The Republican Party is on the wrong side of history, and I think they're going to pay the price.
How the fight over a woman's right to choose could reshape the U.S. political map.
Global National with Farah Nasser. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin with breaking news, a bombshell verdict in BC, where a jury has just decided the fate of Aydin Coban. The Dutch national has been found guilty of harassing and sexually extorting Amanda Todd. You'll remember the BC teenager took her own life back in 2012 after years of online harassment and torment. Coban was convicted on all 5 counts in what the Crown called a persistent case of online sextortion. Our Rumina Daya was in court today and joins us now with the latest.
Jeff, you could hear the heavy breathing down the hallway as people raced back into court for the verdict. Everyone stunned. A decision was reached in this complicated 2-month-long trial less than 24 hours after deliberations began Friday. The verdict, 44-year-old Dutch citizen Aydin Coban guilty on all counts. In the gallery, Amanda Todd's mother let out a huge yes as the jury foreperson read the words guilty 5 times.
There are no words that can explain how my heart feels. It's just a culmination of what Amanda endured and the truths of it all. And now Aydin Coban has been found guilty, which we knew, and justice has been served for Amanda.
This is not what we hoped for or expected, and now we need to consider our options. So we'll speak to our client. An appeal is a possibility. He's disappointed, of course.
The jury only had one question pertaining to the accused's conduct and whether it caused 15-year-old Amanda Todd to fear for her safety and whether the teen's fear was reasonable. After that, it was over within seconds. Coban was found guilty of extortion, possession of child pornography ×2, child luring, and criminal harassment. Coban is currently serving an 11-year sentence in the Netherlands for cyberbullying dozens of young girls and gay men. He was extradited to Canada in December 2020 to face charges in Amanda's case. A dramatic ending after almost 9 weeks at trial, roughly 30 witnesses, 80 exhibits. The jury's job is now done. The next step is to set a date for sentencing. A hearing is scheduled for August 11th. Jeff.
All right, Rumina Daya in Vancouver. Thanks, Rumina. Turning now to a high-level resignation in the world of hockey. Hockey Canada's chairman of the board of directors is stepping down, and his fellow leaders are now facing calls to follow suit. Michael Brindamore informed the board last night and in a statement today says his resignation is effective immediately and he has, quote, listened carefully and intently to the comments of Canadians about the culture of our sport and our organization and about our actions and leadership. And immediate action is essential to address the important challenges facing our organization and our sport. His resignation follows mounting scrutiny against Hockey Canada's leadership after revelations the board settled a $3.5 million lawsuit in April, alleging 8 hockey players, including members of the World Junior team, sexually assaulted a woman back in 2018. Hockey Canada says an interim chair will be appointed in the coming days. Tensions are rising in the waters off Taiwan. The Taiwanese government accusing China of rehearsing an attack against the island. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit there this week sparked angry backlash from Chinese officials, launching military drills in and around the Taiwan Strait. Abigail Bimman reports on calls for the Canadian government to respond.
A commander of China's People's Liberation Army Navy declares this training is about forging a strong iron fist at sea. Taiwan says Chinese airships and warships rehearsed an attack on the island Saturday with more than a dozen Chinese aircraft and 14 military ships crossing the median line in the Taiwan Strait.
It's dangerous because all those Chinese planes, challenging the Taiwan borders require that Taiwan sends its jets up to counter them, and the possibility for a miscalculation or an error is always there. So, the whole thing is frightening.
What we've seen China do over the last few years is move away from a peaceful resolution of differences to doing so coercively and potentially forcefully.
After the G7 issued a statement asking China to resolve differences peacefully, Canada's chargé d'affaires was one of the diplomats summoned by Beijing. In a statement, China's embassy in Ottawa called the G7's position a flagrant act of hegemony, bullying, and coercion, and called on Canada to stop interfering in China's internal affairs in any form so as not to cause further damage to China-Canada relations.
We're extremely concerned with what's going on in the region. We call on China to calm down its rhetoric.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister wouldn't say whether she plans to summon or speak to the Chinese ambassador.
I think that Canada should be extremely firm. I think it's really important for China to understand that its behavior is irresponsible.
China says its air and sea exercises are focused on 6 spots around Taiwan, expected to continue until midday Sunday. Abigail Bimman, Global News, Ottawa.
Indiana has become the first state to ban nearly all abortions since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. The state's Republican governor quickly signed the near-total ban on the procedure shortly after lawmakers there approved it. All abortion clinics in that state will now lose their licenses under the new law. Jennifer Johnson reports on the reaction and repercussions.
Please vote in the affirmative. Thank you.
Indiana State Senator Sue Glick got her wish as lawmakers passed a near-total ban on abortions. The Supreme Court's decision overturning Roe v. Wade left the decision to allow the procedure up to each state, and Indiana became the first, banning all abortions except in cases of rape, incest, or to protect the life of the mother.
I was hoping for a pro-life bill. This is not a truly pro-life bill.
The bill didn't go nearly far enough for many conservative lawmakers.
You cannot treat rape, one of the worst things that can happen to someone. You cannot treat that with abortion.
But it went way too far for many others who hope those who voted for the bill will lose their jobs in the next election.
If you're pro-choice, you can't be happy. I don't know who left here happy. All I know is people need to go out and vote in November.
Under the new law, abortions can be performed only in hospitals or outpatient centers owned by hospitals, meaning all abortion clinics will lose their licenses. Doctors now worry about criminal charges if they determine a pregnant woman's life may be in danger, but a prosecutor disagrees.
We are frightened. There have been a lot of group chats. There's been discussions about, do we stay?
Anti-abortion activists are applauding the bill, acting swiftly after the Supreme Court ended a woman's constitutional right to abortion in June. Now they are promising to take care of women who are forced to keep an unwanted pregnancy.
The state of Indiana has the ability to go forward. We can help these women deliver safely and to take care of these babies as they come along.
They don't care if people die! Abortion advocates are vowing not to give up the fight to repeal this legislation. The new law, making Indiana one of the most pro-life states in the nation, takes effect September 15th. Jennifer Johnson, Global News, Washington.
The battle over abortion rights is expected to be front and center in the upcoming midterm elections in the United States. Now, historically, a new president's party almost always loses seats in the midterms. But a referendum in a Midwestern state this week has just upended those predictions and expectations. Eric Sorensen explains.
When the U.S. Supreme Court ended the constitutional right to an abortion, it only piled more bad news onto Democrats. With inflation at historic levels, President Biden's approval sagging, and history itself suggesting Democrats will likely lose November's midterms.
I thought we were going to do fine yesterday. Shows what I know.
A president's party almost always suffers big setbacks in midterm elections.
It was a thumping.
A thumping for George Bush. A shellacking is how Barack Obama described his midterm experience.
Feels bad.
And as recently as a week ago, a survey suggested Republicans will win the House of Representatives handily this November. But history and ordinary expectations were turned upside down in Kansas this week when the deeply conservative state voted overwhelmingly to protect access to abortion, sending Republicans reeling.
I have no explanation, and again, it was just a gut punch.
The Kansas referendum suggests abortion rights could favor Democrats all over the country this November.
To those of us who watch politics, that abortion is not as polarizing as really we think.
One poll shows abortion has risen to the top issue for American women under 50.
People do not want government in charge of pregnancy in this country. The Republican Party is on the wrong side of history, and I think they're going to pay the price this November.
Republicans have more to worry about than just that.
We may just have to do it again. We have to straighten out our country.
Former President Trump is hinting strongly he wants to win back the presidency. But the congressional hearings revealing his involvement in the January 6th riots have caused his approval to fall, even among some Republicans.
He's a coward. A real man wouldn't lie to his supporters.
And Republicans who back Trump may be less electable, like John Gibbs, who beat incumbent Peter Meijer, a moderate Republican congressman in Michigan, ousted by his own party for voting to impeach Trump.
We're just sick of the politics, sick of everything being a question of fear or anger.
One topic Republicans are likely to avoid now: abortion.
The Republicans' likely campaign this fall was going to center on the national economy, inflation, opposition to President Biden.
But for Democrats, abortion will be front and center in these midterms.
Court practically dared women in this country to go to the ballot box and restore the right to choose.
To Joe Biden, the Supreme Court's abortion decision was a terrible mistake, but also potentially a political gift to Democrats this fall. Eric Sorensen, Global News.
Coming up, a BC teen missing for months turns up dead. Why the family is demanding answers from Vancouver police. To a Global News exclusive now, and a warning, this story contains disturbing details. Last year, a 13-year-old from BC disappeared while in the care of that province. Then in May, a maintenance crew made a tragic discovery. Noelle Osu was found dead inside a Vancouver housing unit. Well, Global News has learned her body was inside the room for months and somehow overlooked by police. Sarah McDonald has the story of the vulnerable Indigenous teenager whose family says she was failed even in death.
For week after week after week, we now know she was here. A 13-year-old child who somehow vanished while in the care of the province. Noelle Osu's remains only finally found in May.
Noelle had been in the apartment deceased for quite a long period of time. And in that period of time, officers had come into the building, like they'd removed another deceased person while there were still two deceased people in the unit for months.
Global News has learned the remains of Noelle and those of a woman in her 30s would only be discovered more than 2 months after the tenant occupying that unit, a man in his 40s, was discovered dead himself. His sudden death is not considered suspicious, but that of Noelle and the other female found dead alongside her are, and now under investigation by the Vancouver Police Department's Major Crime Section.
He was found, and then Noelle a few months later. So there is that gap. And of course the family had questions about that. Why didn't somebody do an investigation right away? Why didn't they go through the whole room? It's a small room.
According to sources, the remains of those two female victims were only ultimately discovered by building maintenance staff, not Vancouver police, following months of complaints by other residents of an overwhelming and persistent foul stench.
Cause like, oh, it smells like death, but blood has a strong sense. I was having a hard time eating. I was just like mortified.
Grace Billiqua, who lives in a neighboring unit, repeatedly raised concerns. Still, the Vancouver Police Department is refusing to release its call records involving this building, refusing any comments altogether on its potential investigative blunder or the identity of the man who lived alongside dead bodies for months, refusing to confirm, even to family, if he's being investigated in connection to these suspicious deaths or any others.
Why was she in the unit with a 40-year-old man or over 40-year-old man. There's no reason for her to be there.
The Office of the Police Complaint Commissioner launching an investigation of its own into the actions of a single Vancouver police officer for neglect of duty.
It seems pretty astounding to me that a single officer is being investigated for negligence when we have heard from easily a dozen people who had interactions with VPD officers and were ignored.
And that includes multiple reported sightings of Noelle in and around this building while she was still alive.
It's so upsetting to think that if maybe one of these people had been taken seriously, that Noelle might still be with us.
An avoidable tragedy left haunting those who loved Noelle and those who never knew her at all.
I feel like I could have done something to prevent that.
And a child who fell through the cracks of a broken system, failed even in death. Sarah McDonald, Global News.
Still ahead, Kenyans prepare to pick their next president. What's at stake for the country and the continent?
You're watching Global National.
Welcome back. On Tuesday, voters in Kenya head to the polls to choose a new president. In the past, elections there have seen deadly violence and controversial legal challenges. Well, this time around, the cost of living is the #1 issue. And as Redmond Shannon reports, the two main candidates are former allies and both firmly part of the political establishment.
Ballots being trucked across Kenya under armed guard before Tuesday's presidential election.
We have nothing to worry about.
Strong assurances in a country where elections are often disputed. 5 years ago, results were annulled, the vote rerun with only one candidate, incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta. In 2007, contested results sparked violence that left 1,200 people dead. Now, the challenger from 15 years ago, Raila Odinga, is back again, running against the current deputy president, William Ruto, a former ally turned political adversary. Kenyatta can't run again, but he's not staying out of the fray either, switching allegiances after falling out with his next in command. For some voters, it all feels like more of the same.
I'm not going to vote. Reason being, these are the same people we have been having all through these years.
The cost of living crisis is hitting Kenyans hard, but indications are many doubt that new leadership will help. The nationally televised debate where only Ruto showed up descended into farce and only added to disillusionment.
What was particularly noticeable was that young people were not registering in the numbers that were expected.
But one of these men will win and lead the East African nation of 55 million forward. Ruto, a former street trader, is campaigning on promises for small businesses and cracking down on corruption.
It cannot be business as usual. When corruption is subsumed into government.
On that, Odinga, on his 5th attempt at the presidency, is vowing action too and pledging affordable health care.
Not a single vote should go uncast. Those who are sick, who are in wards in the hospital, go and get them, to take them to the polling station to vote.
Online disinformation has stoked ethnic tensions in the campaign, but it's hoped there will be no repeat of 2007.
Constituting a crime against humanity.
Not guilty.
Ruto and Kenyatta once faced charges in the International Criminal Court after that violence. The cases were later dropped. A peaceful democratic process now with widespread acceptance of results would mark a step forward. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Up next, the Canadian charity offering a helping hand to war-torn Ukraine. Welcome back. A nonprofit in Victoria, BC that specializes in prosthetics is now stepping up to help war-torn Ukraine, with so many soldiers and civilians there losing limbs as a result of Russian attacks. As Kylie Stanton reports, the charity is now looking to ordinary Canadians for help.
Starting from the bottom and working its way up, Thousands of tiny layers coming together over the course of a few hours.
So right now we're actually printing the palm piece.
While it may not look like it just yet, at the fingers, the wrist socket, and you've got a game-changing prosthetic.
We've worked in a lot of functionality into the hand, so users can perform a lot of daily tasks. They can use it at home, at work, at school, for all sorts of things.
You can flip the switch. The user would actuate their shoulders, close the hand in a locked position.
In just a few short years, the Hand Project has created roughly 200 prosthetic arms for amputees in 10 countries around the globe, the majority of which are developing nations. Through partnerships with healthcare providers and a focus on in-country production, labs have been established, making the prosthetics not only accessible, but also affordable.
It's approximately $150 in materials. We are a full-on charity. Even though we're a technology developer, we want to basically make our designs available to help people.
Now they're hoping to extend that helping hand to the people of Ukraine, particularly those who've suffered limb loss in the war.
We want to set up a print center in Eastern Europe or in the Ukraine and work with clinicians on the ground there to make the prosthetic devices.
The close proximity means a faster turnaround, allowing amputees to be fit within just a week or two. But the charity is having trouble finding resources or collaborators to make it a reality, and is now calling on the public to help. Donation or information is key.
We're looking for the right clinical partners, the right technology partners to produce and fit these arms in the region. And that's really one of the most important things that we need to get started.
Because I see this moving.
Laying that groundwork is what will put the idea within reach, changing lives with a truly hands-on approach. Kylie Stanton, Global News.
And that is Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Jeff Semple. Tonight's Your Canada is a bird's eye view of Bancroft, Ontario. We love seeing your Canada, so please keep emailing your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you back here again tomorrow. Have a great night.